The shadows of Ravenwood Manor nestled deep within the sprawling countryside, surrounded by ancient oak trees that stood like silent sentinels, lay the forgotten Ravenwood Manor. The mansion, a relic of a bygone era, had long since fallen into disrepair. Its once grand facade, adorned with intricate stone carvings and arched windows, was now cloaked in vines and moss, giving it a haunting, almost sentient appearance. Locals whispered of the manor's dark past, of the eerie shadows that danced behind its broken windows, and the unsettling silence that enveloped the estate like a shroud. No one dared to venture near Ravenwood after dark, for fear of the restless spirits that were said to roam its halls. Elena Grant, a young journalist with a penchant for the supernatural, had heard the stories. She was drawn to Ravenwood not just by the tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena, but by a deep-seated need to uncover the truth. The manor had become her obsession, a mystery she was determined to solve. Armed with her camera, flashlight, and a notebook, Elena set out on a crisp autumn afternoon, the sun casting long shadows on the ground as it dipped behind the hills. As she approached the manor, Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the wind whispered through the trees in a language she couldn't understand. She paused at the wrought iron gate, rusted and twisted with age, and took a deep breath. This was it, she was finally here. The manor loomed before her, a dark silhouette against the fading light, its windows like empty eyes staring down at her. She pushed open the gate with a creak that echoed through the stillness and stepped onto the overgrown path that led to the front door. The entrance was flanked by stone gargoyles, their weathered faces contorted into grotesque expressions. Elena hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She reached for the door, its wood swollen and cracked with time, and pushed it open. It groaned in protest, and she stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under her weight. The air inside was musty, thick with dust and the scent of neglect. Cobwebs hung like curtains from the ceiling, and the walls were adorned with faded portraits of stern-looking men and women, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. Elena switched on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. She moved cautiously through the entryway, her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the house settling and the distant sound of water dripping. She made her way into the grand foyer, where a massive chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, its crystals dull and lifeless. A grand staircase, its banister covered in dust, spiraled up to the second floor. As Elena ascended the staircase, she felt a sudden drop in temperature. She pulled her jacket tighter around her, her breath visible in the frigid air. She paused on the landing, listening intently. There it was again, a faint whisper, barely audible, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. She turned her head, her flashlight flickering as she scanned the hallway. The sound seemed to be coming from one of the rooms at the far end. She hesitated, then pressed on, her footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the floor. She reached the door and pushed it open. The room beyond was a library, its walls lined with shelves that sagged under the weight of countless books. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and mildew. In the center of the room stood a large, ornate desk, its surface cluttered with papers and an old-fashioned oil lamp. Elena approached the desk, her flashlight illuminating a stack of yellowed letters tied together with a faded ribbon. She picked them up, her fingers trembling as she untied the ribbon and unfolded the first letter. The handwriting was elegant but spidery, the ink faded with age. "My dearest Margaret," the letter began, "I fear that the darkness that plagues this house has taken hold of my soul. I can feel it, creeping through my veins like a poison, twisting my thoughts and filling my dreams with nightmares. I pray that you will never know the horrors that I have seen, the shadows that lurk in the corners of this cursed place. If you value your life, stay far away from Ravenwood. I can no longer protect you, nor can I protect myself." Elena shivered as she read the letter. The words were filled with a palpable sense of dread, as if the writer had been trapped in a waking nightmare. She set the letters down and turned her attention to the room. The shadows seemed to deepen, and she could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching her. She turned her flashlight towards the far corner of the room, where a large portrait hung on the wall. It depicted a man with sharp features and piercing eyes, his expression severe and unyielding. The plaque beneath the portrait read, "Lord Edward Ravenswood, 1882. As Elena studied the portrait, she noticed something strange. The man's eyes, though painted, seemed to glimmer in the flashlight's beam, as if they were alive. She took a step back, unnerved, and the room grew colder still. The whispers returned, louder now, echoing off the walls in a maddening chorus. Elena spun around, her flashlight flickering, and caught a glimpse of a shadow moving along the edge of her vision. She stumbled back, her heart racing, and the flashlight slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor and plunging the room into darkness. Panic set in as Elena fumbled for her flashlight, her fingers brushing against the cold, dusty floor. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and she felt a cold hand brush against her arm. She yelped and pulled away, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She finally found the flashlight and switched it on, the beam slicing through the darkness. The room was empty, but the oppressive feeling remained, pressing down on her like a physical weight. She had to get out of there. Elena bolted from the library, her footsteps echoing through the halls as she ran back to the staircase. She stumbled on the steps, catching herself on the banister, and glanced back over her shoulder. The shadows seemed to be moving, coalescing into shapes that slithered along the walls and ceiling. She could hear the whispers, now a cacophony of voices, all speaking at once in a language she couldn't understand. She pushed herself up and continued down the stairs, her breath hitching in her throat. She reached the front door and yanked it open, bursting out into the cool night air. She didn't stop running until she was halfway down the path, her lungs burning and her legs trembling. She turned back to look at the manor, its silhouette bathed in the pale light of the moon. The windows were dark, but she could still feel the presence of the house, watching her, waiting. She fumbled for her camera, snapping a few shaky photos before turning and making her way back to her car. Elena drove back to town in silence, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her, that the shadows of Ravenwood had latched onto her, refusing to let go. She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a moment, staring at the house. It seemed so ordinary, so mundane, but the events of the night had left her shaken to her core. She grabbed her camera and notebook, glancing at the photos she had taken. They were blurry, out of focus, but she could make out faint shapes in the background, shadows that shouldn't have been there. Over the next few days, Elena tried to write her article, but the words wouldn't come. Every time she sat down to work, she was plagued by the same sense of unease that she had felt at the manor. The whispers, faint but persistent, seemed to follow her wherever she went. She could feel the cold touch of unseen hands, the oppressive weight of eyes watching her from the shadows. She couldn't sleep, her dreams filled with images of Ravenwood, its dark hallways, the sinister portraits, and the shadows that moved on their own. Desperate for answers, Elena returned to the town's library, digging through old records and newspaper clippings in search of the manor's history. What she found only deepened the mystery. Ravenwood had been built in the late 1800s by Lord Edward Ravenswood, a reclusive and eccentric nobleman with a fascination for the occult. Rumors had swirled around the manor for years, of strange rituals held in the dead of night, of servants who had vanished without a trace, and of a curse that had befallen the Ravenswood family, leading to their untimely demise. The manor had been abandoned after Lord Ravenswood's death, left to rot and decay. But the rumors persisted, and over the years, those who dared to enter the house spoke of strange occurrences, of cold spots, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. Some claimed to have seen the figure of Lord Ravenswood himself, his ghostly form roaming the halls, searching for something, or someone. Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something, a crucial piece of the puzzle that would explain the house's sinister nature. She decided to return to Ravenwood, this time prepared with more equipment and a resolve to uncover the truth. She arrived at the manor just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows that stretched across.